Hey everybody, we're Tillison Consulting and we love digital marketing, and you're listening to the Inside Digital podcast. This is your one-stop shop to learn and expand your knowledge within the digital marketing space. It's never been more important to have an online presence, and in this show, our experts will talk about SEO, PPC, and everything in between. They'll share their personal insights, experiences, and strategies they're taking advantage of so the rest of us can do the same. Here's today's episode.
In this episode of Inside Digital, we're talking about Google Analytics 4 and some of the data and the misunderstandings that people have. So we're going to try and work through some of the common questions we get asked and opportunities that people are missing to make their data a bit cleaner so you can understand and do a better job with your marketing. So I'm Mark Tillison. I've been doing this stuff for like 20 years and building and scaling e-commerce stores and doing lead generation. And with me is Alex, who heads our PPC team.
Hi, yeah, I'm the PPC team here. I'm quite got as much experience as Mark.
In this episode, we're just going to be focusing on the kind of traffic definitions, what they mean, and what you can do to tidy those things up. So we're going to be talking about organic traffic, referral traffic, direct traffic, what those things actually mean, how your kind of data ends up in those buckets. Because this is really confusing for people, not particularly clear, and there are some opportunities which are not made kind of really obvious to you that we're going to share to help you do a way better job.
Yeah. So I think the best place to probably start is going through the different the sort of traffic sources, ideally.
Yeah.
So if we just want to run through those quickly.
Yeah, so the way you can view your data is kind of multiple in GA4 and in earlier versions of Google Analytics. So we talk about kind of these channel buckets, which is kind of analytics grouping together types of sources into one place. Okay, so when we talk about organic traffic as a bucket, that's organic traffic from multiple sources. If we get also into source and medium, so the source might be Bing, it might be DuckDuckGo, it might be more likely to be Google. Okay, so that's the source, and then the medium is organic. It's coming from organic search, effectively what we're saying. And what Google Analytics is doing is grouping those together in a bucket called organic traffic. So that's where those come from. Social traffic, very similar thing. The source and the medium is going to be Facebook or Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and other channels like that. So analytics knows the main ones, and when it knows that it's coming from those sources, it's grouping them together and dumping them into a bucket called social. Referral traffic, similar kind of thing. So that is a click from another website that has referred that person to you. So if you, let's say that your product is featured in a blog post on some blog somewhere by an influencer, and someone clicks that link and lands on your website, usually, not always, but usually that domain will send some data with that click to say, hello, I sent you this user. And that's called a referral. So that's where that comes from. Another one that should be present and often isn't, which we'll come on to later, is email. So have a look back through our list of podcasts. You'll find a whole podcast on email marketing, but that's not for today. But you do definitely want to be measuring email. And if you don't follow the instructions we're going to give you in this episode, then you won't be able to measure that properly. And then the final main one to talk about is the direct traffic. And what that is intended for is someone landed directly on your website. So they didn't come from a search engine, they didn't come from a social click, they literally just landed directly on your website. They typed the name of your domain into their address bar. Actually, what that means, which is the next part of the agenda, is like what is direct? And actually, the stuff that ends up in direct is people who literally landed straight on your website, but a bigger chunk of it actually in reality is we don't know. We don't know where that click came from. So I'll give you some examples of the types of clicks that end up in direct. So those are, if you send an email like normal email, not email marketing, but your normal email. If someone sends you an email and in their thing it says, here's my name, here's my title, here's my website address. If someone clicks that link, that's going to end up in the direct bucket.
Yeah.
Because the email provider doesn't say, oh, I sent you this from Gmail, I sent you this from Outlook, I sent you this from Hotmail, right? It just doesn't. So analytics goes, I don't know where that came from. So it's going indirect. If you don't tag your meta ads campaigns, then meta ads doesn't always declare itself as the referrer. And guess what happens? It goes in the direct bucket. If you are sending email campaigns using MailChimp or Klaviyo or any of those platforms, and they are not tagged in the correct way, all of that traffic will end up in direct. So what you will see in your analytics data is, it goes up and down like all data. It goes up and down every day. And suddenly there's a big spike and a heap of revenue. And then the next day it drops off. And then the next day it goes back to normal. And you go, where did that come from? Oh, it came from direct. What, like 1,000 people just came directly to our website, just happened to type it in on that one day? No, they didn't. What they did is click the links in the email that you didn't tag. So all of that direct, that's called direct, actually isn't, it's email. So that is the problem with the direct stuff. It's not, some of it is direct, but more often than not, we don't know where that came from because the place it came from isn't telling us where it came from.
And if we're talking e-commerce, how does this kind of directly affect you as maybe a small e-commerce store owner?
Well, you can't measure the value directly of email. You can't measure directly and attribute the value and the revenue to meta ads. Quite simply. Yeah. So, beyond that, another use case is things like, let's say a lot of your marketing is offline and you do quite a lot of print. Maybe you send printed mail. Now, if you send a printed letter to somebody and they look on there and go, oh, www, and they type it in, it's direct, right? But if you give them a shortened URL, so if I go mydomain.com/offer34, then what I can do is create a 301 redirect to a tagged version of the URL I actually want you to end up on. Or I can create a QR code, and if I scan that, it goes to a tagged version of the URL. So we should probably talk about tagging.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, as I said before, we have sources and mediums in Google Analytics, and those are then grouped together quite neatly in these neat buckets. So, for example, if I want to know the traffic and the revenue that's coming from email, and my email client doesn't declare I sent this, then analytics is going to dump it in the direct bucket. So what you need to be doing, and there is a blog post on our website and there's another video on it that explains this in more detail. So if you Google something like Tillerson campaign tagging, you will find that video, which I've got hair in. It's a few years old, but it's still completely relevant and correct today in 2024. So what we're talking about is UTM tagging. Okay, so in your URL, in the link that you're going to put in your email, what you're going to put in there is some parameters. So quick thing on parameters. So you've all seen a URL with @ page equals 26. That's a parameter. So page is the parameter, equals 26. 26 is the value. So what we want to do with the UTM tags is each of those is a parameter. So if we do UTM_source, all lowercase, equals email, guess where it ends up in analytics? In the source is email bucket, right? And then we do ampersand medium equals email. And then we can do ampersand UTM_campaign equals summer 2024 email, for example. So now when someone clicks that link, it has the parameters that tell analytics, I came from the source email, I came from the medium email, I came from the campaign summer 2024, whatever I call my campaign. So now that ends up not in direct, instead it ends up in a bucket called email. And if you want to get like really smart with that, if you want the medium to be email and the source, if you want to report on it in this way, could be, I don't know, best customer list. And then a different source with a different email could be I don't know, maybe it's car parts buyers. And then I've got another list with garden equipment buyers. So however you segment your lists, you could actually make that the source. And then instead of it ending up in direct, it's going to go from our car components buyers or car accessories buyers. This is the revenue we got from that list. So you can be really smart about your tagging with that. So just to repeat that again, parameters, UTM_source, UTM_medium, UTM_campaign. There are some others you can use, but let's not get too technical. But that means that analytics can look at the URL and the parameters to understand where those clicks are coming from. So super important. And there is a video like to explain it in a bit more detail. But really, really important for email. I think a lot of e-commerce stores are getting a lot of traffic from email, and then you can attribute that revenue more directly to individual emails that you are sending. In terms of a specific campaign, you can track your email flows, like your transactional emails for the clicks that happen in there, and you can see the behavior. So if you're doing an offer in your follow-up email, how many people click and buy? What's our revenue from those emails? Has our revenue increased? How can we increase it even more? So you're measuring those sources much more specifically, and then you can understand, well, actually, loads of our revenue comes from email. Now I can understand the value of a subscriber, and therefore I can justify investing in growing that list even more.
Yeah.
So the UTM tagging thing, email is a great example. If you are doing print, for example, use the UTM tagging, use a redirect link, something like that redirects to a parameterized version. So even though someone is going mydomain.com/link1, it redirects to the parameterized version, which means analytics goes, oh, I know where you came from. You came from that printed letter we sent. Equally, if you're doing events and you're giving stuff away, put a QR code on there. The QR code is a short code, and that short code, use a short code for QR codes, by the way, because they look a lot cleaner. If you have a massive long 50-character URL and you shorten it into a QR code, it's really complicated. It's harder to scan. But if you use a URL shortener like bit.ly or one of those kinds of things, you shorten it to like 15 characters, the QR code is cleaner and tidier. So you put your parameters on, you shorten that, and then you make the QR code from the shortened URL. So when someone scans it, goes to server 1, redirects to your parameterized URL, analytics goes, oh, I know where you came from. So now when you send out your brochures for your products or you're giving stuff out at an event, you can put unique tags on there so you know the traffic that is coming to your website from the event you did or from the talk you did where you put a QR code on the screen. Any of those things, parameterize the URLs with the UTM tags, and you will be able to measure that in Google Analytics. It's hugely powerful, and I would say 99% of people do not know that even exists. I've had that conversation 4 times in the last 4 weeks. So it just, people don't know about it.
So if you're in the 1% that do know about it and do implement it, you're already at a huge advantage.
Yeah, you can see where your traffic, where your revenue is coming from, and you can measure the value of those traffic sources.
Yeah.
You can measure the value of email. You can measure the value of direct printed mail. I had a meeting with somebody recently where they proudly produced this glossy, beautiful brochure of the products they sell on their e-commerce store, and they're still doing print. I was like, man, that must cost a fortune. So we get so many sales from it. I'm like, but you see the QR code next to every product? Have you put UTM tag, feeling all smug? And he went, yes. I was so disappointed. I was like, I was going to roll it out. But he was like, yeah, we're doing it. I'm like, that's amazing. Because now you can see the revenue and attribute the value of going to that huge cost of printing the glossy brochure and then posting it to everybody. But it drives revenue. And with the UTM tags, we can directly measure the value of doing it and then do it again. Otherwise, we're left saying, man, it costs us like 1,500 quid or 2,000 pounds to like print and send all these brochures. Is it really worth it? Well, we do get a good response. How much? Well, we get a good response. Yeah, but how much? Well, I don't know. So with the UTM tagging and the QR code, it's really simple to do. If you know what you're doing, really simple. But it means you can directly measure the response. You can see which products are being scanned the most from that brochure to get people to the website. And you can see what they actually ended up buying and how much revenue, and therefore calculate your profitability of actually sending that brochure in the first place. which is incredible. And if you really want to get into it, you can, you should be able to tie up the data between the people who had bought from you in the past and the people who then repeat purchased from the brochure. And then maybe you can go, do you know what? We've sent the brochure like 4 times to this group and they never ever buy anything. Stop sending it to them. They're not buying. You're going to all this cost. So then you can optimize that by going, we can save a load of money sending it to only the people we know buy when they get the brochure. Or at least they've had 4 attempts, like 4 strikes now. They've never bought anything in 4 attempts. Stop sending it to them, right? But you can measure it if you tag it. And that data is like extremely valuable.
Yeah. So kind of going back to what we were previously talking about with the different sources. So let's have a look at organic against direct. So what are the advantages of doing one against the other, or can you make them work in unison, or is it?
So they can be part and parcel of the same journey. I mean, organic, of course, if you break that down, most of that is going to be Google organic search, some Bing search, a small number from DuckDuckGo typically. But yeah, effectively, they are searching you're using a search engine, finding you or finding your content, finding your product, and then they're landing on the website. So it's important to understand the distinction and then to be able to understand how those channels play together. Now, when we're talking about multiple channels, we should talk about a multi-channel funnel. And for a lot of purchases, particularly considered more higher ticket products or more complex products, we talk about a considered purchase. What you will often find is that users will, or purchasers will start with something like paid, but that doesn't always convert straight off the bat. They then come back maybe again through paid, maybe a remarketing ad, maybe you're retargeting on Facebook ads or something like that. And then as long as you've tagged them correctly, we'll know when actually they came from paid search, then they came from our Facebook campaign, then they came back organically through our brand terms, then they came back organic again, and then they purchased. So we can see the value of how those channels play together. So that's really important. When you're talking about less considered purchase, so, like a very simple, I don't know, I'm searching for a DVD if people still buy those. So, I'm searching for a particular film on Blu-ray, for example. I know exactly what it is. It's low ticket. I'm like, what is it, 12 quid or something? I know exactly what it is. I know what I'm buying. I don't have to think about it. I just want it to be in stock and I want it delivered, right? That's like one-click sale. So that sort of stuff, you can go, how much revenue is there from organic? It's from organic. That's pretty much it. If it's from paid search, it's from paid search. That's pretty much it. If it's from social, paid ads, then that's pretty much it. There's not much. There's a little bit. There's always a little bit, but a lot of it is that's the channel that did the work.
Yeah.
You do need, in most cases, and I'll definitely look at it regardless, how many times is paid media assisting and organic is the final thing that gets the ball over the line and scores the goal.
Yeah.
So we have to think about multiple clicks across multiple days or weeks and multiple channels and how they play together. The classic example of that is a top of funnel or discovery ad campaign on, let's say we run that on Meta ads. We are creating awareness and desire of that product. Oh, that's really nice. I wasn't really thinking about that right now. And then you think about it, you go, oh, that'd be really nice. What's the thing you do? You're not going to scroll Facebook for like 4 hours trying to find the ad, are you? You're going to go to a search engine and search for the thing that popped up in your feed. And then you're going to find, hopefully, the brand has done a good job of search advertising. So then they go, oh, that was the one I saw. That's the image. I really like that one. And they come back through paid or organic search. But the only reason they searched at all was because of the ad they saw on Instagram or Facebook. So that, if you look at that in Google Analytics, what that data looks like is organic and paid search is the thing that's driving all the sales. And what we're spending on Facebook and Instagram is a total waste of money.
Yeah.
And then the decision you make is, well, let's turn off Instagram and Facebook because they're not working. But they are. Because when you turn those off, people stop searching for the product because you weren't inspiring that activity. So that's where the multi-channel comes in. And going back to email as an example, how, email drives all of our revenue. We get so much revenue from email. Well, let's turn off like Google Shopping. Let's turn off Facebook ads. But you know what happens if you do that? You don't get any new people in your email list, right? So that's how they got in your email list in the first place. So the multi-channel funnel and understanding how the channels play together to produce your result is really, really important.
Yeah.
And the customer lifetime value is going to be impacted by the job you do on email, but the value you get from your investment in paid activity or organic to get the sales and acquire the customer in the first place, that is more valuable. And you can invest more in it if your email to get repeat orders, if your email marketing strategy actually works better. So what I'm saying is when you are now in a position with your UTM tags to understand the value and the revenue you're getting from email, you now have to then attribute some of the future revenue you're going to get through pay-per-click to be able to say, well, our return on ad spend normally go at 5 to 1. Actually, do you know what? We could lower that at 4 to 1, get 50, 60% more revenue, knowing full well that the customer lifetime value is far greater than that first purchase.
Yeah.
And with better analytics data attributed just with UTM tags, that is a huge, huge difference. It's huge.
Massive.
Organic, social, referral, email, and direct traffic. So direct, the big thing to take away from this is direct is either actually really direct or I don't know where it came from. You definitely want to be using UTM tagging wherever you can to fill in that gap to get things out of the direct bucket. Future clicks doesn't work retrospectively, of course, but future clicks. Now I know this is email traffic. Now I know this is coming from Facebook or Meta ads. Now I know this is coming from a QR code. I can measure it. So UTM tags, hugely powerful. Just be careful about your naming convention of how you do it. But that's hugely valuable. And also make sure that you are looking at multi-channel funnels to understand the journeys and how they play together so you can really attribute the value of where you're investing your time and effort.
Wow, what are the common sources of referral traffic?
Interesting this one. So referral, remember, is where a website, someone's clicked a link on a website to land on your website. So actually, Facebook is a website. That click is technically a referral, but Google Analytics calls it social, and that's fine. So what you will find is if you are regularly featured or featured on high traffic influencer sites, then you would get referral traffic from those domains. What shows up for e-commerce an awful lot is PayPal as a referral. PayPal isn't generating any traffic for you, right? That's not where your sales are coming from. They're coming from somewhere else, then they're going to PayPal to make the payment, then they're coming back. So that you can tackle with a referral exclusion. There's a blog post on our website about how to do that in a video, which means analytics will ignore PayPal as a referral and it will count the previous one. So very quickly, if you click on a Google ad, a Google shopping ad, you land on the website, you go off to PayPal, then you come back, analytics by default will go, oh, you got a sale from PayPal, a referral. You didn't. When you then add PayPal as a referral exclusion, which you absolutely should, or whichever payment gateway you were using, but when you add that, what that same journey looks like, you came from Google Shopping and you converted. So analytics then attributes that revenue to the original traffic source rather than PayPal, tidies up your data, makes it a lot more clean. So that's typically where you get a lot of referral traffic that isn't really referral traffic. It's just how the systems work, but you can tidy that up.
And what makes direct traffic channeling to analyze accurately?
So as we've gone, as we've gone through in the stuff we were talking about earlier, it's when you're not using UTM tags to determine where that traffic's really coming from. So if you look up that video, that piece of content on our blog. So just a reminder, if you Google Tillerson campaign tags, you will find that article, and we'll put a link, I'm sure, in the show notes, etc.
Yeah, and that just helps increase the accuracy.
Yeah, it's not going to increase your traffic. It just makes it clearer where that's actually coming from.
And then you can target those traffic sources more specifically.
Yeah, and choose to invest more time in them or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the case of email, how much revenue do we get from email? Not much. Why are we spending all this time and effort? Why don't we get anything from email? How could we improve it? So what gets measured gets managed.
Yeah.
And if you measure it, then you can manage it. You can look how much more. Otherwise, you're left with, man, look at all this direct traffic. How do we get more than that? I don't know. I don't know where it came from, really. I think some of it's email, but I don't know how much. I think some of it is probably social ads, but I don't know how much. I think some of it is the mail we're sending, the print mail, but I don't know how much. So when you measure it just purely by adding UTM tags in the right way, you will be able to see that data in analytics.
And finally, why is it crucial to understand the differences between the different traffic sources?
Same reason, I think. So just you're able to attribute where that stuff's coming from and the revenue and how they play together, I think is really critical. So if you just talking about Google Analytics data, forget the Facebook ads, its own tracking, forget Google ads with its own tracking. They measure and attribute in a slightly different way. But when you look at the analytics data, I think the critical thing to understand, so the first point is use the UTM tagging wherever you can so that things don't end up in direct none, and then understand the multi-channel funnel. So where are people coming from on their journey? Where are those clicks coming from that are assisting with the final sale rather than generating the sale themselves?
Yeah.
So the easiest analogy, which I think is in that original video, is for those people who have a remote or an acute interest in football, like yourself. Think of it as someone is scoring a goal and we attribute the value of that goal or how many goals we score in a season to that striker. But that striker didn't do that on their own. They just don't, right? They don't just like run from one end of the pitch with the ball and just put the ball in the net. It's a team game, and digital marketing and sales and e-commerce stores is a team game. So actually, what happens in our analogy is the keeper will throw the ball out to a defender. Let's say the defender spots a run from a midfielder who will then pass the ball, right, nice, neat or long pass. The midfielder runs down the wing, sees the run from the striker, crosses the ball, and the striker finishes and scores the goal. So what we have to do is attribute some of the value back to the goalkeeper and understand the goalkeeper started the movement, and actually give that person some credit, right? Or that click in this scenario. And then we know actually the defender saw the run from the midfielder, so we got to say, well, they assisted with that. If they hadn't done that, the whole thing would have fallen down and we wouldn't have scored. And then we've got the midfielder who's then spotted the run and crossed the ball, and then strikers finished it off. So what happens with e-commerce sales quite a lot is email might be the thing that finished it off, but you can't get to the email without the goalkeeper. You can't get to the goal without the keeper. You can't get to the goal without the defender, and you can't get to the goal without all those intermediate clicks. So we have to think when we're doing Facebook campaigns, for example, or Instagram campaigns. Some of those things drive immediate revenue, and they just, it's one click and you're done if it's the right kind of product. With more complex products, we very often are thinking Facebook is driving sales, but it's the first click. Like, it's not the keeper just kicking up the pitch and scoring a goal. That very, very rarely happens, right? It doesn't happen in football. It happens probably more often in e-commerce. Like, it's one click and we created the awareness.
It happens occasionally.
Yeah, exactly. I think for the right products, you can drive revenue through meta ads all day long, right? And it's great, and you can do really well. But for a lot of purchases, Facebook creates the awareness and interest. Search then maybe picks up and scores the goal. Yeah. So you have to look at that multi-channel funnel to understand the real value that Facebook is driving. Yeah. The real value, we got so many sales off organic. Yeah, but 50% of them were people looking for your brand. That's not because you invested in SEO. That's because people were aware of your brand through the ad, and then they searched for it, and then they bought. You can't really say SEO did that. That's just having a website with your brand name on it.
Yeah.
And as long as your brand is unique, then you're going to rank for that, right? That's kind of, yes, it's organic, but it wasn't an investment in organic. The thing that did that, almost 100% of it, was Facebook did it, and then they searched, and then that's just like a tap in. Yeah. Right? That's just like I'm standing on the line and I just didn't have to touch the ball, but I did. Yeah, that's what that is. So I think understanding how your data and how your audience and your products and your store and where your sales are coming from, and the journeys and the steps, the clicks, the platforms that are part of that, that's the whole point of breaking your data down in that way in analytics. is to understand when Facebook goes, I drove all these sales, and Google Ads says, or Facebook says, I got you 100 sales last month, and Google Ads says, I got you 100 sales last month. And when you look at analytics, it says you got 100 sales, but that's 100 plus 100 is 200. And what's happening there, this is an extreme example, of course.
Yeah.
But what's happening there is for the 100 sales, Facebook created the awareness and interest, and every one of those sales went to Google and searched and then converted from the search click. Facebook is agnostic of all other platforms, so it knows it was involved and therefore it will claim it. Google Ads own tracking is agnostic of all other platforms, so it does the same. Analytics is your view of how those platforms play together and probably gives you a clearer idea of how they're playing together. So what that scenario would tell me is we have to do both. We have to understand the value of both and invest in it accordingly and measuring it in that way. That's all for this episode. Make sure you subscribe for more. We have future episodes, I think, more on email, more stuff coming on SEO for e-commerce, more on conversion rate optimization to help you increase your revenue and sales.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Inside Digital Podcast. Make sure to visit our website at tillison.co.uk, where you can read more about topics discussed in this show and much more. If you're looking to get started or to continue your digital marketing journey, we can help. Just reach out to one of our experts through our website. We'd love to hear if you found value in the show. Please leave a review and be sure to tune in for our next episode.